Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strangeness of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman-Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for today's episode. This week we welcome back Gemma Jade to the show. Gemma and Steve Stockton join us for the season 2 finale to chat about their book, Encounters with Evil, 101 True and Terrifying Tales. You can check that episode out if you have not listened to it already. But today we're talking with Gemma about all things fairy folk and her book, Missing the Fae Theory. You can find Gemma Jade's books on Kindle, Amazon, and wherever fine books are sold. Also, check out her awesome YouTube channel where she dives into all things paranormal. And be sure to hit that subscribe button. Hey, Gemma, thanks for joining us today.
What's up, Eric? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I love the conversation with you and Steve about the true and terrifying ghost stories. I love that book, and I love your Missing the Fae Theory. I think it brings up a lot of really good points and kind of connects a lot of the paranormal together. The Fae thing just fascinates me. A few years ago, if you asked me if I believed in fairies, I'd tell you you're crazy. But now, researching it and reading your book and doing other research and seeing kind of this come to the forefront is kind of makes you rethink things. You kind of be flexible in the paranormal.
Yeah, you definitely have to be flexible. And, I've noticed in my short career, even on YouTube, but even since I was little and I would, play with the Fae and get visits from the Fae, I didn't know what it was. But I noticed as I got older, and like I said, especially in recent years, people will believe in, everything. I have people that believe in the predator entity. They believe in UFOs. They believe in, every single thing, but they draw a hard line with believing in fairies. And I've come to the conclusion that a lot of that has to do with hearing about them in fairy tales. I think fairy tales really mess things up for the Fae or for those of us who are trying to spread the word about them and to caution people about them, because it's just unbelievable, because we grew up hearing about this fantastical fantasy of the Fae, right? So how are we going to believe that that fantasy was a reality the whole time? And I think that's what a lot of people have a problem with, or have a hard time with when it comes to believing in the Fae. It just seems too magical, because a lot of people don't realize that magic is very real and it's all around us, like portals,
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people have a little bit of an issue with the Fae, with believing in it.
Yeah, for me, I think that gives it more credibility because it is pervasive among many different cultures and pop culture. And just because we have like Disney fairies doesn't mean that that's the real truth. I mean, if Disney made a movie about animated movie about aliens, you wouldn't believe that aliens weren't real just because Disney did a movie about it.
Right, exactly. I don't know. I'm wondering too. A part of me has this broader thought that maybe it is the Fae and their magic that makes people so hardwired to not believe.
It's kind of like they're hiding in plain sight by trying to fool people into thinking that it's just this fairy tale, which is where we get the name from.
Exactly. And I really do think that's one of the issues. Either it's been so Disneyfied and so ingrained as too magical, or it's them, like, don't believe in us, sprinkling that fairy dust on people to not believe or something,
Yeah, and even cultures nowadays believe in fairies. I mean, you have over in Europe, a lot of them, they'll build roads around fairy outcroppings, and they have laws against messing with fairies. And people really in these cultures believe in fairies, that the Fae people really are real, and this is part of the culture. So in America, why we believe that it's just unfathomable, but that these things exist, but yet people, like you were saying, people believe in aliens and cryptids and the Loch Ness monster and all these things, but fairy are just out of the realm of possibility.
Yep, I don't get it either. I recently did some research into unicorns, and I believe that they're an extinct animal rather than a magical animal. But the unicorn is the national animal of Scotland.
Yeah,
America would never do something like that.
Right. Right. Yeah, and diving into the book, so why the title Missing the Fae Theory?
that came from a little bit of it was writing for Missing Persons Mysteries for Stephen Bill, but a lot of it is I believe that the Fae were a part of the missing phenomenon. I don't know if I could say missing 411, but I believe they were a lot of what's happening in the woods with these people going missing because when I looked at the parameters that were being set out, I was like, Boulderfield, very picky. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean? I'm like, these people are walking into portals. These people are being abducted by the Fae. And when I brought the first script to Missing Persons Mysteries, that's when Steve Stockton's publisher, Beyond the Fray, reached out and was like, we need this in a book. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. But the name comes from, I believe that the missing, one of my theories is that the Fae are involved. And because I was writing for Missing Persons Mysteries, I started calling it Missing the Fae Theory. And it was just ended up being a great title for the book. But I believe very, very much so that, okay, two things. One, with the Fae, that they are responsible for a lot of it. A lot of them despise humans, as I talk about in my book, and I talk about the reasons. A lot of them just love to play with us. A lot of them love to have their fun with us. Now, I'm a medium. I've channeled spirit. That's told me a little bit about what's going on. One of the things going on in the woods with the missing, in that they are being specifically chosen and walking into portals. And when they walk into the portal, they are, of course, terrified. The way spirit showed it to me, and I want to really tell people this. They showed it to me as people are going in, and of course they're panicked, but they're in the same place that they were. So if they're sitting, say they walked away from the campfire to go get something from their car and they never came back. They were chosen, they walked through this portal and they were still walking on the same trail, but something is different. They're approached by these beings and the beings tell them like, listen, this is your life now. You can take it or leave it. You're a part of an experiment. It is extraterrestrial. A lot of what's going on. But that's not the only thing going on. I don't know everything going on. I know that's one thing, is this experimental world that these people are being pulled into with extraterrestrials and humans. But as far as the Fae, if you read that book, or if you even just know anything about fairies and you look at the parameters being laid out, it's, I don't know, to me, it's spectacularly obvious that it's the Fae at least a little bit involved here.
Yeah, and I think there's a few different explanations that
there's so many.
Don't fully understand.
The human element, the cryptid element, the UFO element, the spirit element, the portal, vortex element, the evil element, and the Fae element, and probably so many more that I have no idea.
Well, not to offend anybody, but if you believe in religion, why couldn't you believe in that there's another dimension with these beings that we just don't understand? And, if you believe in angels and God and things like that, and even like in Islam, not just picking on Christianity, but even in Islam, if you believe in the jinn are responsible for lots of things, or you believe in demons and that type of stuff, then all of these things are possible.
I absolutely agree. And, I never mean anything that I say to be offensive. I always mean it to be for, the spread of knowledge to the greater good of the community and, the world over, really. But I am a devout Christian, but I'm also a physical medium, and I get accused by some Christians, even at my church, of necromancy, and it's mind-boggling to me that, I never wanted to believe in UFOs because they terrified me. Once I became a born-again Christian, my first question was, well, did Jesus die for them too? And I think that's the issue, at least from what my friends have told me, that a lot of people, at least in my religion and that I know, have, because it brings up too many questions that a lot of people just simply don't want to answer, and right. And that's why this community, it's definitely growing, but we still have a long way to go before we reach total understanding or even total belief.
Yeah, but I still think it's good to question these things, whether
absolutely
you believe in religion or not, because as many of us in the paranormal have seen over the years who've done this for a long time, like you're a medium, I'm an empath, and we've both dove into the paranormal and we've seen it firsthand. you can't deny these things exist, that these weird things are going on. Now, do we have explanations for them? No. But I think it's good to question even your religion and say, because I think that's how we learn and how we evolve in our beliefs as well.
Absolutely. That was my first thought. If you don't question, how do you find the answer? You know what I mean? How do you learn anything? My husband is a complete and total non-believer. He thinks, my videos are hilarious. He watches them for comedic relief. And no, they're not comedy videos. And I feel like some people just simply aren't ready to open their eyes to it. It can be a scary thing to realize that, you're sharing your backyard with fairies, that you didn't even think were real. That's why a lot of people freak when they're approached by entities like this. And some people call all of it evil. All of it is just plain old evil. And I guess because of how I was born with my abilities, I don't know if I could ever understand that, but I try to put myself in their shoes too. Like, how would it be if I didn't grow up seeing fairies and seeing demons and spirits and ghosts and how would that be? And it's almost impossible for me to even fathom, but I try. And that's what I ask the people that watch my channel. I always say, I'm not trying to change minds here, guys. I hope you learn something. I just want you to learn something. If you learn one thing from my video, then I'll be happy with the video.
Yeah, or at least make it to where, you take away, okay, well, maybe I need to think about this. Even the people listening to my show right now, even if, you come out of this episode not believing in fairies, at least it made you think in a different way about the world around you, that there are lots of things that we can't see or explain.
Absolutely. Absolutely right.
So diving into the fairy folklore, there are different types of fae folk, many different types.
There are thousands. I mean, there could be hundreds of thousands. There are all the ones that we're familiar with through said, aforementioned fairy tales. And then there are ones that I've discovered just through being able to see and connect with them. But there are probably so many, I'm sure there are many that I don't know either. And a lot of the time people don't understand. They talk very broadly, even in this community, about the fairy realm. There are many, many, many fairy realms. Like this is a complete oversimplification, guys. So just hear me out. Oversimplification is an understatement, but I'm going to try to put it in terms everyone can understand. So in our world that we can see, we have all of these different countries. And there's different, wherever you live, there's different districts, or in America's case, states. And so that's how the Fey realms are. There's all different ones. The pixies don't live with the ogres. It's just, there's so many. They're separate, but they do all, some species hang out with other species in their realms, and then they interbreed because, they like to have these sexual parties, I guess you could say. And then there's a whole new species all of a sudden. So there's more than I could ever even name if I sat here naming the ones I know. And there's constantly more being bred, I guess, or create. I don't want to say create. Created, I guess, from interbreeding.
Yeah, and some of that even crosses over to humans.
Oh, absolutely. And if you are getting visits from fey creatures, if fey creatures are coming to you in a very benign manner, you most likely have fey blood running somewhere in your veins down the line, okay? More often than not, it comes from the maternal side of the family, because most of the time it's women who were seduced. A lot of the time it happens where you could be, I have about 2.5 acres of property. My next door neighbor is actually no-build wildlife preserve land. So there's woods and trails. So what they do is they come out of the woods. These women are walking on the trails for whatever, and this has been going on since the dawn of time for humanity, and they'll come out and they'll be the woman's exact version of what a dream is, male or female. Well, I guess it would have to be male because they're breeding. And then they hypnotize or glamour or mesmerize, whatever you want to call it, the woman. And not only do they breed with her, but they take the memory of the event away. Now, Could you imagine waking up pregnant and not having a partner, or like not having been with anyone for 6 months? I mean, they take the memory of the event away. So I don't know why there aren't more reports of this. It's all very magical. And maybe that's where people have a hard time, because there are no simple explanations. But the Fae blood usually runs through the mother's side because of fairies seducing them. People think it's ridiculous when I say that the Fae don't always stick to the woods. You can meet a person who's, 75% Fae, and they're very aware of it, and they're more aware of their Fae family side than their human family side. And they go out specifically to seduce women in order to have children. And sometimes I believe the missing children, not all of them, mind you. I hate saying things like that because I feel like if a family hears this, they're going to freak out, but not all of them. But I do believe some of them, the Fae believed those children were their property.
Yeah, and then you get into something, talking about the children, you get into something that I think scares me a bit more than a lot of the rest of it is changelings. And there's a history, throughout history, there's evidence of this.
Yeah, it stopped. I want to say more children are going missing. Like, look, again, the missing phenomenon in the woods. Parents are blinking and their kids are going missing. And the parents almost always get the blame because there's no other explanation. There's one case, and I won't say the name of the case, obviously, but it happened, and there were 4 people. There were the parents, the grandfather, and a friend, and the little kid went missing. And these parents still to this day are considered murderers, and that little baby had so much Fae blood that he was taken back into a Fae realm. And women are not home birthing as much anymore, right? And when you go to the hospital, your baby has this little lock on their leg. You can't, it's very, very, very hard to take a child or an infant from the hospital these days, at least in the United States. So how is a Fae going to take the baby, right? They have to wait for the child to grow and strike when the iron is hot, strike when they have the opportunity, like when the child's on a camping trip. And I don't think so much they're leaving changelings anymore, as they're just taking what they believe is theirs.
Yeah, and for anybody listening who doesn't know what changelings are, can you kind of describe that phenomenon and how it came about?
Sure. So the Fae used to, way back in the old days, and I think it still happens sometimes now when the infant's home, but it's very, very rare. But it used to happen all the time, where the fairies would come in, usually right in the bedroom through a portal, and they would take the infant child, very, very infant, like very, very newborn, and replace it with a sickly Fae child. And every once in a while, the child would be returned with a love of music and like with a little bit extra magic. But most of the time, those parents never saw their babies again. And of course, the mother is going to look in the crib and say, "This is not my child." For some reason, because of all the interbreeding, the fairies have a lot of sickly infants themselves. And fairies grow, most of them, just as humans do, from infants to adults to elder, right? So they were leaving these sickly infants in place of the healthy infants. And what can a parent do? They can't call the cops and say a fairy stole my baby.
Right.
So that's what was happening. And these a lot of the times the mothers were locked up. They were considered crazy, or the child would pass away after just a few months. And if the child didn't pass away, the child would grow, and sometimes the fairy child would be healthy. But I want to tell you guys, it's that feeling of never fitting in, never feeling like you belong, always knowing that you belong to someplace other. And I think a lot of us in this community can relate to that feeling. That's the feeling the fairy child would always grow up with. And a lot of the times they would grow up to be in some trouble, or to be, the maniac of the village, or, because they knew something deep down inside wasn't right.
Yeah, yeah, and there's even been movies. There's a movie called The Changeling.
Yes,
not
there
about.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit different. And there's a case that I remember from, I want to say the 30s or 40s, that movie was kind of based on. And even up until the 90s, there's a case of this kid that went missing as a teenager or as a kid, and came back supposedly as a teenager, and ended up like murdering part of the family. And the cops they try to say, well, this guy was not the kid who disappeared, but the family kept saying, yes, it is. And, it's kind of that question of, did they hang on because they wanted to believe this was their kid grown up, or did they just not care because they had their kid back from what they thought?
They just wanted to paint you away. I discussed that on some other interview I did, or maybe it was when I was doing After Hours on Spaced Out Radio. We talked a little bit about that. There are many cases throughout history where a child had gone missing, and when the police had returned the child, the parents would, it went one way or the other. The parents would either say, that's not my child, and the police would say, yes, it is. And 99% of the time, the parents tried to accept that it was, because then they didn't have to live with the heartbreak anymore.
Right.
And as a mother of 5, I can't even imagine. So I remember I posited the question to people, like, what do you think you would do if you kind of knew deep down inside that it wasn't your child? I do believe it still happens to this day, don't get me wrong. But I don't believe it's reported. And I believe, as I said, they just wait for the proper moment to strike. I know I have to say, blood. I will not bring my son into the woods. And when I do, he's 4 years old, and literally I am on him like white on rice, because I am terrified. He's like a 4 foot tall 4-year-old. He's like super smart. And I'm like, this child is fairy. Like, I can pick him out. Not all of my children are that much fae as my baby, my little guy.
Yeah, I find the whole phenomenon extremely interesting, especially when you put it in with, like you were saying, with the missing people in the missing person mystery stuff, like Steve and Bill do, and y'all do for the channel. And you've even done some videos. Y'all have done some videos on there, like you're talking about. That kind of led into the book.
Oh yeah.
But my views have evolved over the years of especially doing the podcast and talking to so many people. But I've been researching and investigating for so long that you can't be closed-minded to anything. That's why I don't understand people fighting within the paranormal community.
That's crazy, because, not to cut you off, but that's such a great point, and I say this every chance that I get in this community, paranormal, the ufology community. Guys, I have this piece of the puzzle. Eric has that piece of the puzzle. You have the other piece of the puzzle. If we came together, we may be able to put the whole puzzle together, instead of scattering the pieces all around because you believe that Bigfoot's interdimensional and I don't. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
There's too much infighting. And I wonder, as being someone who, I don't like using the word witch because it just brings up bad feelings in people, but being someone who is a witch and who's familiar with magic and who's familiar with the fae, I wonder if that's a purposeful thing by some otherworldly beings as well in this community, to just keep us divided, so there's infighting, so we don't put the whole puzzle together.
Well, and also, I mean, there are stories of people coming back from these different realms, these different planes of existence, and have these fascinating stories.
I've been to the Fae realm 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, one that recently caught my attention was it caught my attention because it's a scientist. And I talked to somebody about it here on the show. He's a biologist or something. He was in the jungle, I think in South America. And he didn't go any further than he could see the fire tower, like this 3-story fire tower. And that way he didn't, get lost in the jungle, this thick jungle. And,
trying to be smart about it, of course.
Yeah, and also, predators and things like that around in the jungle. And he's studying whatever wildlife or whatever that he's studying. And he all of a sudden felt weird. He started looking around, and he said everything looked normal, but it looked different at the same time. Yes. And he could still see the fire tower, and he could see people on the fire tower. And he started yelling at them because he just felt weird and felt like he was in some kind of danger. Well, they never responded, like they heard him. So then he starts trying to walk toward the fire tower, but he could never get there. And this happened to him for like a few hours, where he kept trying to get back to the fire tower, but he kind of ended up in the same place where he started every time, even though he's looking at it, and he keeps yelling for people. Well, finally the people go out and they go out looking for him, and they can't find him, but yet they looked in the spot where he was at and they never saw him. Well, whatever portal or whatever he walked through, he was able to get out of and finally yelled and they came and found him. But it was the same place, like I said, where they had searched and searched. But the whole time he's watching people in this fire tower yelling for them. And as soon as he walked out of this portal or whatever dimension he slipped into, as soon as he yelled, they heard him. And he thought that he was going to be stuck there forever. And this is a scientist.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I love when that happens. We have to do some critical thinking. And what you described is exactly what Spirit told me was happening to a lot of the missing people. And if you think about it, even deceased bodies that have been searched for months, weeks, even days, are showing up in the woods in places that have definitely been searched 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And people are like, someone had to have put that body there. No, honey, something put it there. Something put it there. Some people, when they go through, for whatever reason, they're not going through as they're not able to make it for whatever reason. I believe when it comes to the Fae that either they rebelled too much or caused too much trouble, or after the fairy abducted the person, decided that they actually had no use for them. I talk a lot about this in Missing the Fae theory. It's what people tell me is one of the most interesting things, the things that interested them about the book, is that I not only talk about what could be going on, but I talk about what's happening possibly while they're over there to an extent.
Yeah.
Reasons why they would be sent back, either deceased or confused, disorientated. But the main thing is that disorientation. Whether it's Fae, whether it's the extraterrestrial world that I was telling you about, or whether it's whatever it is. I mean, really anything other than the human element is paranormal, not paranormal, otherworldly in nature. It's got to be. Because if it's not a human doing it, even if it's a cryptid, to me, cryptids are otherworldly. Okay, because I know Bigfoot comes from the 7th dimension. I know people that have channeled Bigfoot. So for me, it's all otherworldly except for when it's done by human beings. And I want so bad for everyone to just believe in it a little bit and do a tiny bit of research, but some people just aren't ready. And I think some people are hardwired to be that way for a reason. What if everyone in the world really did believe and we all went out searching? What would we find? I visited the Fey realm, and I remember someone asked me if I could describe it. Have I ever seen it in a movie? Like what movie? You know how sometimes movies portray the Fey realm, like even Disney movies. Was there any movie that looked like what the Fey realm looked like? And I explained at the time that no, not really. But afterwards, I regretted that because I did think of one movie. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of it was blocked out for me because I was told I was being prepared, but I wasn't ready. The first time I ever was brought in, I was about 4. My father darn near had a heart attack. Let me tell you guys the story, and then I'm going to tell you guys the movie. So I was up at this mountain in Paterson, New Jersey, where I'm from. It's called Garrett Mountain. There's an old castle called Lambert Castle. Obviously, it's long since abandoned, the castle, but they turned it into a museum. And around Garrett Mountain, it's very, very high up. You can see all of Paterson, and Paterson is huge. So you can see all of Paterson and the highway there. So my dad would take me up there. Now there's running trails, hiking trails, but back then it was kind of just this little area. And it's called Garrett Mountain. And my dad and I were just walking, and I don't know how, I guess he was tying his shoe. And I decided I was going to hide. And as I went to go behind the tree to hide, because I was going to jump out at my dad, I was approached by this small being, creature. And I couldn't even tell you today what kind of Fae it was, because it's blurry in my head. Sometimes I'll say it was like a gnome-like creature, but then other times I see it as a pixie-type creature. I just don't remember properly what it was. But I was brought into this realm, and a lot of things were blurry. But, I mean, the colors were just vibrant and amazing and beautiful. I mean, it was when I saw it as an adult, I cried. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, I'm in this realm for like 4 minutes, right? We had to walk behind this little tree, and there was that kind of twinkling in the air that you see in some movies where they show a portal, you see like the twinkling. That actually was there, and we did walk through that and go in. When I've seen it as an adult, I've actually cried because it was so beautiful and overwhelming. But when I came out, I was only there for 4 or 5 minutes. When I came out, there were like police, and my father was sitting on a rock crying. And I remember running up, and he's like, "Gemma, where were you?" I said, I went with my friend. I was gonna play hide and seek with you, Daddy. I had been gone for hours, hours. It was in the morning when we had gone up there, and it was almost dark when I had come out. And they didn't tell me anything. They just said, "This is what you're being prepared for, and basically we'll keep you posted." I don't remember exactly, but it was, and the gist of it was, "We'll be back," right?
Yeah.
So I thought about that question, like, is there anything that, any movie that accurately portrayed even something similar to what the Fey realm looked like? The movie Avatar, obviously it's not exactly the same, but if I were to compare it to anything I've ever seen here in this world, it would be the movie Avatar.
Have you ever seen the show True Blood?
Oh my, are you kidding me? I am in search of real vampires, boy.
True Blood kind of they kind of take that deep dive into fairies more so than I've ever seen any other TV show or movie.
Yeah, yes, they did. Vampires. I want to find one, and I want them to turn me. It's this whole thing I go through on my channel every once in a while. I'll do a video on vampires, and I will just rant out about how like they need to come and find me. But yes, True Blood covered them, and you know, I thought they did a good job for humans who have never seen fairies, probably. But what puts the ideas in their heads? You know what I mean? Is it really all the fairy tales they've seen, or is there a little fae whispering in their ear? Like the Glimmer Man Predator entity, that movie came out. I've still never seen it, but I believe it came out in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
The Predator movie. How did they get that right? Either it was telepathic suggestion, or what I believe is the person who created or wrote that movie was privy to some information that the government had to give a thumbs up to. You know, I don't think these ideas, like even Avatar, you know, it looked very much like one of the Fey realms I've seen. So is this telepathic or some other sort of non-physical suggestion going on? I do really believe it. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it that us as humans, I'm not saying we as humans can't create something like that. I'm not saying we're not smart enough or talented enough. I'm just saying, where does the idea originate?
Right. Is there some kind of influence? Yeah.
Right.
Another phenomenon that I find interesting that a lot of people want to kind of throw in true crime category is the smiley face killer. And a lot of people want to think that this is a network of killers or one person going around, because these, especially men, college age men, are just disappearing. No video where there should be video of them leaving a club or a bar or walking down the street. And they disappear for weeks at a time, and then they're found in water. And when they're found in the water, it's like they've only been there for a day instead of 2 weeks. To me, it seems like there's a supernatural element to them going missing and then all of a sudden just showing up. And the fact, like I said, the fact that their bodies don't look like they should have been in the water for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it is. And also, it's the same thing with like people going missing in the woods. They're finding their bodies in the water where places they've already searched. And it's like somebody has kidnapped them, taken care of them, and then drowned them. Or some cases, they don't even know how they died.
Right. And I did a very in-depth documentary style video for Missing Persons Mysteries on the smiley face killer. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Missing Persons Mysteries, you're missing out. I'm the head writer for that channel, and I really am very, very proud to be a part of that channel. Steve Stockton's the narrator, you guys, the friendliest voice on the internet. But I did a documentary style script for them on that. And I've got to say I agree with you, because I'm the type of person, I spend a lot of time alone at my computer. If I'm not taking care of my 4-year-old, I'm working on the computer. I'm researching. I want to know everything. So when they brought me in to do that documentary, I was obsessed for a week trying to figure this out. David Paulides also has, I forgot the name of the book. I have all of his books, but they're not right in front of me. There is A Sobering Coincidence is the book that he wrote on these college age men. Can I tell you, I looked People were asking me, they're like, Gemma, do one on college age women disappeared and ended up in water sources. Guys, it's not happening. It
Yeah.
is just men. Um, and I believe you. I think some of that is a human element. But I tried so hard to wrap my head around the concept of human beings being able to successfully pull these murders, because they are murders, off for, 20 something years so meticulously without leaving behind, especially if you have touch DNA, dude. Touch DNA. Okay? And yes, that was washed off in water. Most cases that are attributed to the inner city or city water drownings, college water, whatever you want to call them, are actually probable drowning. It's put in there as a probable drowning, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Probable drowning does not mean the person drowned. It just means they
Right.
might have. It just means that is the most logical solution for the human medical examiner's brain to be able to wrap his head around, right?
Right.
So I definitely want to agree with you there. Do I have all the answers and all the connections? No, but as I was saying earlier, I believe it could very well have a Fey element. I think some of it has a human element. The one young man had some hair in his hand that for years they were like, no, it's his hair, even though he was a brunette and hair on his hand was blonde. Finally, they reopened that particular investigation. They do believe he was murdered. But most of them, I believe, are being done by otherworldly creatures, not just the Fae, otherworldly entities, I should say. But I do believe there are, you guys, there are faithful, and I can't name them all right now off the top of my head, but I can tell you that are beautiful, that are enchanting, that will entrance you. And do you know why they want to do that? Because they hate human beings. So is it possible that these men are being lured out of the bar by a beautiful and enchanting Fey creature who has her heart set on bringing this human being, this beautiful, smart, intelligent, because let's face it, most of them were very good looking, very athletic, super duper smart, bring them back to the Fey realm, have some fun with them, and then when they're done, dispose of them as though they were an old toy. Why? Because human beings mean nothing to a lot of these Fey creatures. There are some that are friendly toward us. There are some that fear us and stay away from us at all costs. But the only Fey creature that I've come across in all of my research, and I've been researching the Fey for years because of my experiences with them. This is long before 2 years ago when I got my YouTube channel. I'm talking maybe 25 years of research here, okay? I've only come across one Fey species that's inherently good and kind towards humans, and they're one of the most rare as far as people sighting them or coming across them, and those are the brownies. They sneak into your house. They cause a little mischief by cleaning things up that were dirty. They come in and they clean, and, they're kind of like little shoe cobbler elves. Something's broke, they might fix it. Or you might wake up the next day with a whole bunch of little things out of place, and they just kind of like to play little practical jokes on us. But if we were hurt in the woods, any number of Fey creatures would come forth and help us. But the brownies would be the first ones there. They're the only species that doesn't care about what the other species feel, right? So I believe Flannel Man is a Fey creature. Yes, I said it, and I'll say it again. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I believe Flannel Man is a Fey creature because Flannel Man, though he scares a lot of people, I believe that's accidental. I believe that's out of curiosity. Even in the book, there are encounters, and I've come across several more encounters since writing the book of people who have been confused, disorientated, and who have been let out of the woods by a man in flannel. There's one story of a guy that it happened to, and I'll make it very quick in case I think I've talked about it before, where he was turned around by this big flannel lumberjack guy with an axe, and kind of a formidable and formidable man, actually, that he was a little frightened of, but the man told him, like, don't continue going this way, you're going to be in trouble. So when the man ran back to the road to get help, he told him, I hope I didn't get that guy that was chopping wood down there in trouble because I know it's illegal to do that. And they're like, we went down there, sir. There's nobody down there. There's nobody chopping wood. The guy knows what he saw, and it made him a lifelong believer and researcher in the Fae, actually, because he knew what he had seen. But here's the thing. If another Fae entity who despises humanity and the human race were to find out that the Flannel Man did that, there could be some repercussions for him, depending on whether or not he shares a realm with that particular entity.
Yeah, I find it that things like that popping up. The Flannel Man's just popped up over the last few years, kind of in pop culture anyway, kind of in the paranormal community. I don't know when the kind of first reports were, but I've talked to even some Native American friends here on the show from the Fallen Hour radio podcast, and they told a lot of stories about growing up on the reservation out in the Midwest and seeing crazy things and hearing stories about little people and using magic. And this is very much something that their culture still practices and believes in. And, you know, a lot of what they talked about, it just reminded me, you know, a lot of what they talked about sounds like these people working along with some of the Fae folk in their part of the country. And some of the stories that they have, that they've heard and things they've seen are just incredible. But they're very, you know, credible people, and they have an amazing show. They talk about a lot of this on their show. If anybody wants to go listen to Fallen Hour Radio, or go back and listen to the episode I did with them.
What is it called? I would love to hear that.
Fallen Hour Radio.
Fallen Hour. All right, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's two brothers, and they've experienced some crazy shit. And their dad comes on and tells stories. They tell stories about things their grandfather passed down to them, and this is not like Native American folklore. This is things that they experienced growing up on the reservation, things that people they know have experienced. This is not legends handed down.
Right. It's not the oral tradition. Right. I mean, I'm half Native American. My mother is half Cherokee, half Iroquois. I have no affiliation with any reservation or anything like that. We grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, but I know a lot of the legends. My father is 100% Irish. So my grandmother on my paternal grandmother is the one who told me a lot about the little people and the Fae. And I got to tell you guys, you know, being born with all these abilities, which my whole life I didn't even realize, honestly, until maybe 10 years ago, that they were abilities and not that I was like being haunted. But I believe that a lot of my abilities, the reason that I'm always called, like if I meet a priestess, witch, I hate saying witch, but guys, you'll know what I mean if you're from this community. I'm not talking about, you know, the Halloween witch, and I'm not talking about, you know, the evil broomstick riding ones either. I'm always told that I'm a natural witch. So, yeah, I think a lot of my abilities in that quote unquote natural witch thing comes from the Fae blood. I really do. My mother comes from a very long line, from what I understand, of healers. But my mother never accepted her gift until she's, you know, in her early 60s now, and she's finally coming into these gifts and understanding why she's seen all the things that she's seen her whole life. So it runs in the Native American side. Yeah, the Native American blood. My father couldn't believe less in it. I don't even talk about any of it in front of him because he just poo-poos me. But I believe maybe there's some correlation between the Fae and our Native American cultures and communities. I believe they could be, and this is just my opinion, guys, again, never mean to offend, only to educate, and I'm only asking questions, but I believe they could be what's left of the Fae in our realm are these Native American communities. And I believe that's why the Fae and other otherworldly beings and creatures show themselves so much on these reservations, is to keep their legend alive. For as much as they don't want us finding too much out about them, they also don't want to be forgotten either. And that's just one theory, you know, that I have on that, and a million.
Yeah. We could go on for hours talking about the subject just because it's fascinating. And there's so much to it. I mean, we didn't even get into like the world history of the Fae and fairy folk and, you know, all of that. To switch gears a little bit, you have another book that will be coming out about shadow people.
Yes. It's either going to be coming out in December sometime or in, you know, the beginning of the new year. It's called Shadow Entities Beyond the Sleep Paralysis Demon. I've been dealing with shadow entities my entire life. I believe it's going to be the Halloween edition of the Paranormal Press magazine. I told my story of the shadow entities that have basically followed me around my entire life. Shadow entities don't usually telepathically communicate. Shadow entities don't usually follow one person, and they usually don't live in a family. And I finally come to realize these shadow beings are most likely extraterrestrial. But I wrote about it for the magazine, and the sleep paralysis thing has gained such traction in the community, and so many people are talking about it. And I have so much personal experience with it, with the jinn, with the devil, with demons, with spirit, that I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to use factual knowledge, but also my personal experiences. And I'm going to put it all together with other people's encounters, and I'm going to write a book on this. And Beyond the Fray was very happy to have the book. Next month, I'll start writing a book about the Black-Eyed Kids. So I'm delving into everything paranormal. But the book coming out, it is about shadow entities. I do talk a little bit about sleep paralysis. I do talk about it throughout the book, and I put a chapter on it. But I really didn't want to talk about the scientific part. I brought the scientific part in because I know a lot of people do believe sleep paralysis is a medical condition or something scientific, and I wanted to make people question that. And that's a lot of the book as well, is making people question their ideals and thoughts and opinions and everything they think they know, not only about sleep paralysis, but about shadow entities as well. There's a whole chapter on the jinn, and I'm really excited for people to read that one. I'm always excited when one of my books come out, but this one, I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I've always found shadow people fascinating. I've had Mike Ricksecker on, and his views, and he's done a lot of research, and his views are amazing. He grew up having experiences and actually was touched by a shadow person, which rarely ever happens. And but he's had issues. I don't know if you call them issues, but experiences with shadow people kind of his entire life. But yeah, I look forward to your book coming out and diving into your experiences here on the show and other stories that you've collected. Everybody go check out Gemma's books. They are on Amazon, Kindle, and wherever fine books are sold. And they can check you out on your YouTube channel, Gemma Jade on YouTube. And what else do you have going on besides the new book? Anything else going on?
A couple things. So I've got the new book coming out, like I said, December or beginning of the new year. Head writer for Missing Persons Mysteries. So if you're not subscribed over there, if you haven't checked that out, go do that. I have my channel simply titled Gemma Jade. There are a few Gemma Jades, but I'm the only one that covers the paranormal. Okay, and I think I'm the only brunette. Actually, that's how I always tell people I'm the brunette. Also on November 6th, I will be on the Paraflix Network. Okay, on a show called Disembodied Voices for a 2-part episode where I talk about everything. The Fae, shadow people. I talk about being a physical medium. I talk about when I go to clients' houses and walk through, if you've ever seen the Dead Files. I'm no Amy Allen, but I do similar work outside of YouTube, like in my personal life. So I'm going to be talking about all those things. It's called Disembodied Voices. It premieres on November 6th on the network Paraflix. But it's also on the Disembodied Voices podcast, and it's already there. Okay, I don't know what the episode's called. I should have looked that up. But Steve Stockton was on it for the season 2 premiere. It's a great, it's very new network, Paraflix. Yeah. So if you don't have Paraflix, please go to your podcatcher. I don't know about podcasts, but I know it's everywhere, just like you are, Eric. So it's Disembodied Voices. And then, just my channel. And in a couple of weeks, I will be premiering the website for Gemma Jade Oracles, where I sell spiritual helper boxes, manifestation intention sprays, personal intuitive oracle readings, which I already do. So, guys, if you're interested in like oracle readings or talking more about the metaphysical products, crystals, and things and the like, or if you just have any questions, I always love to meet new people, to answer questions, and to get personal with the people who listen to me and who watch my show. My email is gemmajadeParanormal@gmail.com. And really just Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I always love talking to you, and I always am so disappointed when our time's up. Like, if my husband didn't have to go to work, I would try to convince you for another hour because I just have so much fun with you. You're very laid back. You're very, you let me ramble on like I do. And just thank you. And thank everyone who's listening as well. Please come and check me out. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Well, thank you so much, Gemma. It's always a pleasure to talk to you as well. And I will have you back on the show when your Shadow People book comes out, if I can talk. And we'll definitely chat again. But thank you again so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, have a fantastic day or night, everyone who's listening, when you're listening.
All right, everybody, stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Join us next time for a new episode of The Unseen Paranormal. Until then, head over to the Unseen Paranormal Lounge on Facebook for all the latest updates and discussions about the show. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, or at unseenparanormalpodcast.com. And please rate, review, share, and subscribe to help more people discover the show. The Unseen Paranormal Podcast is proud to be the ambassador for paranormal for Verbal.com. A big thank you to my friend Chris Lips for the awesome theme music. You can find more of his music on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. And as always, thank you for listening.
You have come to the end of the line.